My poems have holes sewn into them, and they run searching for light at the end of tunnels. They become trains, or at the bottom of pits, they become blackness. Or in the broad, winging daylight, they are words that fly. And those are these words, letters are syllables with feathered wings that leave their marks on white pages, then fly off like footprints tracked in snow, and only God knows where they go. This poem has holes stitched into it as our speech, which created poetry in the first place. Lacerated, wounded words that strike out original meaning, bleeding into language, hemorrhaging out of thick or thin mouths, has empty spaces and silences sewn into it. My poems have holes sewn into them, and their voices are like different keyholes through which dumb men search for speech. Blind men search for sight. Words like drills penetrating sleep. Keys unlocking keyholes of language, words giving sight to blind people's eyes. My poems have holes sewn into them. There are spaces between worlds or worlds themselves. Words falling off into one another, colliding like people gone mad. They space out, fall into bottomless pits, which are black holes of letters that become words and worlds like silent space between chords of a piano. They fall back into themselves, into time, sleep, bottom out on the far side of consciousness where words of all the world's poets go and whisper in absolute silence. This poem has deep holes stitched into it, and their meanings have that deadly suck of quicksand, the irreversible pull of earth to any skydiver, the tortured pus holes, tracking arms of junkies. My poems have holes sewn into them, and they run searching for light at the end of tunnels or at the bottom of yawning pits, or in the broad daylight where the words flapping like wings of birds, fly, whispering in absolute silence. I want to read this poem here and read this section of this poem. The title poem of this book called is The Architecture of Language. But the poem is 18 pages, and I ain't gonna read 18 pages to y'all. I wouldn't read 18 pages to myself, you know. So I'm gonna read the last two sections, 9 and 11, and this section deals with language. The whole thing about language, that language is everything, you know. And so when I saw Katrina come in. And I went to Grambling, and I used to go to New Orleans all the time. When I saw Katrina come in, I had two reactions. First, I was terrible. I knew I wouldn't see it again like it was. And then I wanted to talk about the language of what happened when Katrina came in with all those waves and all those. It's kind of a language, you know what I mean? And you have to look at it in a dispassionate but passionate way, in a way. That's what poets do, you know? That's what poets do. We look at language. It's about language. It's about form. It's about all that stuff, you know? Like music is. Music is about all that. 9, The Architecture of Language, section 9. Great language is a shower of words inside a blizzard of tongues full of rhythms and syllables. Is a flow, is snowstorms of meaning coming and going everywhere our ears turn. Here, rainstorms, tornadoes, lightning bolts unzipping clouds, towering around the calm, cold eye of hurricanes. Is a flow, flow, coming and going, bringing new systems of music, new ways of listening, connected to hearing, structures carrying a host of evolving languages, roiling tongues inside cross-fertilized speech of immigrants. And new poetry is a flow, also located in the evil eye of Katrina, Rita, swirling in from the Gulf of Mexico, carrying thunder and death, foaming with cataclysmic omens, terror beyond any understanding, categories beyond any knowing what horror will bring, through cracks of daylight, destruction unfolding. Rancid bodies bloated, floating in toxic water. Is a language, is a flow. We hear but do not know how to recognize 30-foot storm surges, speaking in tongues more violent than any language we think we hear or know, more violent than gunshots. Is a flow disjunctive beyond any application of money. Is perhaps a cosmic spiritual payback for bug-eyed children who mirror the language of hunger, murder, no sympathy or empathy for blues people festering in a place full of heat, water, mosquitoes, poisonous snakes, high prices for gasoline, for cars thirsty for petrol. Is a flow of anarchy spreading like a plague in this place. Is a form of language ignited by Category 5 winds and angry seawater, foaming salt and screaming in the voodoo language of the sea goddess Urzali. Hoogans blowing calamities ashore through their mouths of long bamboo horns. Is perhaps a payback for all the terrors released in this flow. When coffins, mummified corpses, leering skeletal bones, unearthed by Katrina's savage flooding tongues, are scattered like dead leaves and broken branches all over Louisiana's devastated countryside. It tracks the fall post-haste of America's once promise of greatness, lost here in this macabre jumble of unknown spirits, evicted from their graves with no names, identity, no race ticket or skin color has privilege in this space of spirits displaced. No person, no bones has privilege in this space. Scattered from former resting places of chipped tombstones, also scattered. Their skulls reminding us of broken teeth of ex-fighters, junkies. These corpses, grinning teeth set in jaws of cracked bone. Is a powerful language screaming for redemption. If we look deeply into this moment, it reveals our true selves, what we can do in these spaces we live in, corrupted by greed, skin, color, class, religion, power at all costs. Is a definite language suffocating in claustrophobia, ethnophobia, no connection to the real flow, to the flow of humane language, poetry inside the most profound beauty of utterance. Sing still inside the deepest grain of the flowering word, sound by sound, word by word. Speech evolves into beautiful architecture, creates a scaffolding of cross-fertilized utterances, cross-beamed inside poetic sentences, fused with music, where metaphors spring from deepest sources of community. Deepest sources of community. These, my friends, these are the seas that will bind us together. This thing called love. Thank you. I ain't gonna sit up here and read forever. You know, I don't like to read a little time. This is an old poem called So What? You know, I love Miles Davis. He was my friend. I wrote 2 books with him. And, no, 1 book with him and 2 books. Miles, the autobiography I wrote with him, and so I got a chance to know him real well. And then Miles and Me, which was a book about our relationship, about that chronicle our friendship until he died. He was a misunderstood person. He was a very misunderstood person. Now, he did a lot of devilish, stupid things. He sure did. And I mean, I told him, you know, I didn't like the way he treated women. I told him that. He said, "What'd I do?" I said, you know what you did, man. I ain't got to tell you. You older than me. Shit. You know what you did. You know, I mean, but I love Miles because he was a genius. He was just an absolute genius musician, and he made us all better with his music. You know, he made us all better with his music. But anyway, this So What, I wrote this a while back, and I want to read it to you. My homage to Miles Dewey Davis, because he grew up over there and influenced a lot of us in this room and in this area, and especially a lot of artists and musicians. You know, he had big impact. So what? Miles blew So What on Kind of Blue back in 1959, and I do too, right here, right now. So what is an attitude? A rhythm steeped and shaped deep inside the blues. What the cadences build then pick up as attitudes bursting into light, high stepping it through a room, space, where energy mimics style, grace. The music dancing around whatever energy brings into the room. The territory is whatever is living in the world and is not free. The beauty we receive here, inside this moment, is the music, is whatever we are feeling right now. Popping our fingers as we move through a hot groove like hip people supposed to, we goose up the nights. And the space most of us cruise through is not deep enough to keep the feeling real here with what we know, with what we got, with what is brought to the table right here, right now. So what, says the wind up in the music, blowing through our lives like a tornado, exploding into view, swirling like screaming headlines, leaving false rumors all around, fake photographs made up in dark rooms. So what, says Ivy League assassins employed by the CIA, the government of disinformation, dropping bombs of terror throughout our lives, who kick down our doors like ski mask bounty hunters, who blast through our dreams just because they wanted to and could do, playing war games like they were gods. So what, said the paleontologist KKK of hubris? So what, says day-to-day bullshit dumped into our lives? The second reconstruction is here, right now. So what, Miles blew back in 1959. So what, said the tornado blowing through our lives? So what, said the creators of war games doing what they do for the public good, for so-called freedom and democracy, justice, democracy? The second reconstruction is here right now, y'all. And it's all about attitude. And it was all about attitude back in 1959 when Miles blew Change on Kind of Blue. And it's all about attitude and change right now, here, right now, y'all. It's all about attitude, change right here, right now.